Heir. The invitation arrived sealed in gold. Not out of kindness. Out of cruelty sharpened by certainty. She recognized the scent the moment her fingers brushed the parchment, cold iron dominance, ceremonial ink, and the faint echo of a bond that had been cut so publicly the pack still whispered about it years later. Pup ceremony. High moon. Royal grounds. And beneath it, in flawless script. Your presence is requested. Not wanted. Requested, like an audience summoned to witness a victory lap. Her wolf stirred uneasily. He wants you seen. Yes, she murmured. As proof. Proof that the Alpha King had moved on. Proof that his new Luna had given him heirs. Proof that the mate he once rejected as Barren had been rightfully discarded. She folded the parchment slowly, breath steady despite the old ache blooming in her chest. They thought she would come alone. They thought she would come diminished. They thought wrong. Before you hear what happens next, ask yourself this. What happens when the man who rejected you for your supposed worthlessness invites you back, not for reconciliation, but humiliation, and you arrive carrying the one thing he was never meant to have? If you crave rejected mate revenge, alpha regret, heir revelations, and the kind of emotional payoff that leaves a kingdom breathless, subscribe now and stay until the end. Because this isn't a story about mockery. It's about who gets to kneel when the truth finally stands. She arrived at the royal grounds under a sky split with moonlight. The pack had gathered in ceremonial finery, banners raised, torches blazing, scents layered thick with celebration and power. Laughter rang out. Pride saturated the air. At the center of it all stood the Alpha King. Crowned. Flanked. Smiling. His Luna, young, radiant, very visibly fertile, stood at his side, one hand resting possessively over her swollen belly. The pack watched her with reverence reserved for women who secured lineage. And then they saw her. The murmurs rippled instantly. That's her. The Barren one. She actually came. Doesn't she have any shame? She walked with her head high, spine straight, cloak drawn close, not in defense, but in patience. She felt their eyes slide over her, measuring what time an exile had taken from her. They saw no escort. No visible claim. No obvious threat. The Alpha King's smile sharpened when he noticed her. He stepped forward, voice carrying easily across the grounds. You came, he said, satisfaction curling through the words. I wasn't sure you would. I was invited, she replied evenly. And I always honor ceremony. A few titters of laughter followed. The Luna's gaze flicked over her with thinly veiled disdain. It's good you could witness this, she said sweetly. New life brings such hope. The word landed like a blade meant to twist. Yes, she agreed calmly. It does. The Alpha King gestured toward the stone dais where the ceremony would take place. Stand there, he instructed. So you don't miss anything. He wanted her close. So everyone could watch her watch. She moved as directed, boots quiet against polished stone, heart steady despite the memories trying to claw their way up her throat. This was the same ground where he had rejected her. The same moon. The same witnesses. She cannot conceive, he had declared back then, voice cold with finality. She weakens the bloodline. Tonight, he intended to show the pack how correct he had been. What he did not know. What no one here knew. Was that the small presence at her side had gone unnoticed. Until it stepped forward. A child emerged from beneath her cloak. Not a babe. Not fragile. A boy of about 6 winters, tall for his age, posture instinctively proud. His eyes, sharp, unmistakably alpha, lifted calmly to the assembled pack. The grounds fell silent. Not because children were unexpected. But because dominance answered him. The torches flared. The air tightened. Several warriors stiffened, instinctively lowering their heads before they understood why. The Alpha King froze. His sense spiked, shock, denial, something dangerously close to recognition. Who, he began, then stopped. Because the boy looked at him. And the bond, long severed, long denied, trembled. This, she said quietly, resting a steady hand on the child's shoulder, is my son. The word son rippled outward like a shockwave. The Luna staggered back a half step. That's impossible, the Alpha King said hoarsely. You were Barren. She met his gaze without flinching. You were wrong. The boy stood taller, eyes never leaving the Alpha King. His presence pressed outward, not wild, not aggressive. Measured. Royal. The pack felt it. Whispers broke out, frantic now. Do you feel that? He's alpha-blooded. No, stronger. That aura. The Alpha King's hands curled into fists. Who is his father? He demanded. She smiled then. Not cruelly. With devastating calm. You, she said. Or rather, who you were before you chose pride over truth. The grounds erupted. Denial, outrage, awe, colliding without order. The Alpha King took a step back, eyes locked on the child as realization carved the color from his face. And the boy, Alpha Heir, unclaimed, undeniable, did something that shattered what little control remained. He bowed his head. Not in submission. In acknowledgement. And in that moment, every crown, every ceremony, every lie the Alpha King had built his rule upon began to crack, audibly, irreversibly. The silence that followed the boy's bow was not empty. It was loaded. Every instinct in the pack screamed contradiction. This should not exist, could not exist. A barren mate did not produce heirs. A rejected bond did not carry forward bloodline authority. A child did not command space without dominance being deliberately asserted. And yet, the air bent. Not violently. Not aggressively. It yielded. The Alpha King felt it first. His breath hitched as the pressure settled into his chest, heavy and undeniable. The child's presence did not challenge him, but it measured him, as if some ancient scale had been quietly placed between them. You're lying, the Alpha King said at last, voice hoarse but loud enough to fracture the hush. This is a trick. She did not answer him. She knelt instead, lowering herself to the boy's level, hands gentle but steady as she adjusted the clasp at his shoulder. Remember, she murmured, too softly for the crowd to hear. You don't owe anyone obedience. The boy nodded once. Then he straightened again, posture instinctive, untrained but true. The Luna found her voice in a brittle laugh. This is absurd, she said sharply. You expect us to believe a child appeared out of nowhere and just happens to. She stopped mid-sentence. Because the child looked at her. Not with hostility. With clarity. The Luna's sense spiked, panic, insecurity, a flare of protective dominance that failed to find purchase. Her hand flew instinctively to her belly. The boy's gaze shifted away politely, as if disinterested. The pack reacted. Several warriors lowered their heads without conscious thought. An elder stumbled, steadying himself against the stone dais, eyes wide with something dangerously close to reverence. This aura, someone whispered. It's not juvenile. It's stabilized, another murmured. Refined. That's impossible. No, an elder breathed. It's airbound. The Alpha King surged forward one step before stopping himself, knuckles white at his sides. What did you do to him? He demanded. She rose slowly, placing herself between the boy and the Alpha King, not shielding him, but clarifying position. I raised him, she said evenly. Without your interference. Without your judgment. Without your permission. His gaze flicked to the boy again, this time sharper, searching, seeking familiar markers he could not deny. The eyes. The bone structure. The resonance in the chest that responded despite every instinct screaming rejection. How? He asked, the word breaking free before he could stop it. You were declared barren. The healers were wrong, she said. Or lying. Or pressured to agree with you. The accusation struck harder than any shouted challenge. You made a decision, she continued calmly. And the world did not obey. The elders shifted uneasily. The Luna stepped closer to the Alpha King, voice low but edged with desperation. This changes nothing, she insisted. Even if the child is yours. The pack froze. Even if. She had felt it too. The Alpha King's breath stuttered. Enough, he snapped, turning on her. You will not. The boy spoke then. Not loudly. Not timidly. I'm not here to take anything. The sound of his voice cut through the tension like clean steel. All eyes turned to him. I came because she was invited, he continued calmly. And because you should know the truth. The Alpha King stared at him, stunned. You're too young to. I know what I am, the boy said, unflinching. And I know what I'm not. The ground beneath the dais pulsed faintly, as if agreeing. I'm not your weapon, the boy finished. And I'm not your shame. The Alpha King swayed, the words striking something dangerously close to guilt. She placed a steady hand on her son's shoulder again, pride warming her chest, not loud, not boastful. Quiet. Unbreakable. The Luna's composure shattered. He's manipulating you, she hissed. This is why she came, to steal your crown. She laughed softly. No, she said. I came because you invited me. The reminder landed like a blade turned inward. You wanted witnesses, she continued. You wanted me humbled. You wanted your victory affirmed. Her gaze swept the crowd. Instead, you received truth. The Alpha King's throat worked. If he's mine, he said slowly, then he belongs to this pack. The boy's posture did not change. Her smile faded, not into anger, but into certainty. No, she replied. He doesn't belong to anyone. A ripple of unrest surged through the assembly. He's the Alpha Heir. The bloodline. The law. Law, she interrupted, is not ownership. The Alpha King's gaze locked onto her now, raw and searching. You kept this from me. I protected him from you, she corrected. There's a difference. The boy took a small step forward, not toward the Alpha King, but toward the center of the circle. I don't want your crown, he said clearly. But I won't pretend I don't exist. The moon climbed higher. The pack felt it, the shift, the fracture forming beneath centuries of certainty. The Alpha King stood at the center of a ceremony meant to crown his legacy. And realized he had just been confronted by the one legacy he had never been meant to control. The ceremony never resumed. No drums sounded. No blessing was spoken. The torches continued to burn, but their light felt harsher now, exposing rather than celebrating. The pack stood caught between instinct and disbelief, eyes darting from the Alpha King to the child, then back to her, searching for a version of reality that would restore their certainty. The Alpha King was the first to move. He descended from the dais slowly, each step deliberate, as if the stone beneath him might crack if he moved too quickly. He stopped several paces away from the boy, breath tight, gaze fixed with a mixture of awe and fear he could no longer hide. What is your name? He asked. The boy did not look to her for permission. Chiron, he said calmly. The name struck like a memory returning too late. The Alpha King flinched. Years ago, in a different life, he had spoken that name aloud by a fire, half laughing as he dismissed it as a foolish dream. He had wanted heirs then. He had wanted legacy. Just not with her. You should not have brought him here, the Alpha King said quietly. She tilted her head. You should not have invited me. A few wolves shifted uncomfortably, the truth of that cutting deeper than accusation. The Luna's composure finally cracked. This is an abomination, she said sharply. You humiliate the pack with lies and spectacle. Chiron turned his head toward her, eyes steady. I didn't come to humiliate anyone, he said. But I won't disappear to make you comfortable. The Luna recoiled as if struck. Several elders murmured in alarm, not at his words, but at the resonance beneath them. It was not dominance, not a push. It was alignment. The Alpha King's voice dropped. You feel it too, don't you? The elders exchanged glances. Yes, one admitted reluctantly. The blood recognizes him. Another elder swallowed. Stronger than recognition. It's affirmed. A wave of unrest surged through the pack. Warriors shifted, torn between bowing and bristling. Tradition warred with fear. If he is alpha-blooded, a captain said carefully, then the law. The law was written to protect the pack, she interrupted. Not to cage children. The Alpha King raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. If he is my son, he said slowly, then he must be tested. The word fell heavy. Her shoulders stiffened. No. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. It's tradition. It's cruelty disguised as tradition, she shot back. You test warriors. You don't test children to satisfy pride. Chiron stepped forward again, unafraid. I don't need your tests, he said evenly. You already failed mine. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The Alpha King's breath stuttered. You dare. He dares because he's right, she said. You rejected us both before he ever took his first breath. Silence spread like frost. The Alpha King turned away, pacing once as if searching for a version of himself that could still control this moment. When he faced them again, his voice was lower. Why come now? He asked her. Why not stay hidden? She met his gaze steadily. Because you invited me to be mocked. The Luna stiffened. And because, she continued, my son deserves to know where he comes from, even if he never chooses to stay. The Alpha King's eyes flicked back to Chiron. You would walk away from your birthright. Chiron nodded without hesitation. If it costs my mother her dignity. The pack felt that, felt the clarity of it, the absence of hunger for power. It terrified them. The Alpha King stopped moving. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. I was wrong, he said. The admission did not soften the moment. It sharpened it. I believed strength was proven by lineage alone, he continued. By heirs produced on command. I believed barrenness was failure. He looked at her then, really looked. I failed. The Luna's face went pale. You can't. He silenced her with a look. I failed you, he said to her, voice breaking. And I failed him before I ever knew his name. The pack held its breath. She did not rush to comfort him. I didn't come for your regret, she said quietly. I came because you summoned me. The Alpha King nodded slowly. Then let me answer properly. He turned back to the dais and climbed it, not to reclaim spectacle, but to face the crowd. This ceremony is ended, he declared. There will be no mockery tonight. No claims. No coercion. Outrage flared, but so did relief. Chiron, he said, addressing the boy directly, I recognize you as my blood. The words landed heavy, official. But, he continued, I will not claim you. The pack gasped. You will choose, the Alpha King said. Freely. When you are ready. Or not at all. Chiron studied him carefully. That's the first honest thing you've said tonight, he replied. A ripple of stunned laughter broke the tension, short, disbelieving. The Alpha King bowed his head, not deeply, not theatrically. Genuinely. I cannot undo what I did, he said. But I will not repeat it. She watched him closely, weighing truth against history. Good, she said. Because this is not forgiveness. The Alpha King nodded. I know. The moon crested higher, washing the grounds in pale light that revealed the cracks beneath ceremony and crown alike. The pack stood altered, no longer celebrating, no longer certain. And at the center of it all stood a boy who had not come to claim a throne, but to prove it could never claim him. The pack did not disperse when the Alpha King stepped down from the dais. They lingered, caught between tradition and something newly unsettled. Wolves who had arrived ready to celebrate heirs now stood uncertain, eyes drawn again and again to the child who had undone the ceremony simply by existing. Chiron felt it too. He stood close to her side, small hand brushing her cloak, grounding himself without clinging. His presence remained steady, no flaring dominance, no instinctive challenge. And yet the air still seemed to arrange itself around him. The elders withdrew first, murmuring urgently among themselves. Their voices carried fragments of fear. This will fracture alliances. The bloodline. If other packs learn. The Alpha King let them go. He turned back to her instead, expression stripped bare. You should leave tonight. She raised a brow. You're dismissing me now. I'm protecting you, he said quietly. And him. She studied him for a long moment. From whom? From everyone, he admitted. Including me. That honesty landed harder than any command. Chiron looked up at him. You're afraid of what you'd try to do if we stayed. The Alpha King didn't deny it. Yes. She exhaled slowly. Then you're finally thinking clearly. They began to walk, slowly, deliberately, away from the ceremonial grounds. The pack parted instinctively, making space without orders. No one reached for them. No one blocked their path. But eyes followed. Hungry ones. Conflicted ones. And some, hopeful. At the edge of the grounds, she paused. You wanted witnesses, she said, not turning back. Now you have them. The Alpha King inclined his head. I won't send hunters after you. You shouldn't, she replied. You'd lose more than you already have. Chiron glanced back once, gaze calm and assessing. Take care of your pack, he said. They're hurting. The Alpha King swallowed. So were you. Chiron nodded. Yes. And I survived. They left without ceremony. The forest swallowed them quickly, moonlight filtering through branches in broken silver patterns. Only when the sounds of the pack faded completely did she slow her pace. Her breath finally shook. She crouched and pulled Chiron close, pressing her forehead to his. You did well, she whispered. I wasn't scared, he said quietly. I know, she replied. That's what scared them. They moved deeper into the woods, following paths she knew well, routes chosen years ago when she had learned the art of leaving without being followed. Behind them, the land softened, making pursuit inconvenient rather than impossible. Chiron glanced around. Will they come after us? Not tonight, she said. They're too busy arguing about what this means. And later. She smiled faintly. Later, they'll realize wanting something doesn't mean you're allowed to take it. They made camp near a shallow stream just before dawn. The water flowed gently, unconcerned with kings or heirs. She knelt to fill their canteens, watching the ripples settle. Chiron crouched beside her. Do you regret going? She considered the question carefully. No, she said. Do you? He shook his head. I wanted to see him. Now I know. Know what? That power doesn't make people whole, he replied. Choice does. Her chest tightened with pride. Far behind them, the pack fractured quietly. The Luna retreated to her chambers, fury collapsing into panic as whispers spread faster than reassurance. Elders argued over whether recognition had been a mistake. Captains debated loyalty in hushed tones. And the Alpha King sat alone in the council hall long after dawn, crown resting untouched on the table before him. He replayed the night again and again, not the accusations, not the spectacle. The bow. Not submission. Acknowledgement. He exhaled slowly and made his first decision as an alpha who no longer ruled by certainty. He sent messengers, not hunters. By midday, scouts from neighboring packs had already begun to feel the shift. Rumors traveled quickly, carried on scent and unease. The Alpha King has an heir. The rejected mate returned. The child walked away. No one knew what it meant yet. But everyone felt it. She and Chiron continued west as the sun climbed, forest thinning into open ground. She did not feel watched. She did not feel pursued. For the first time since the invitation arrived, the weight in her chest eased. Chiron walked ahead now, confidence natural, curiosity unburdened by expectation. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere quiet," she replied. "Where no one knows your name." He smiled. "Good." Behind them, the world rearranged itself around a truth that could not be unspoken. And ahead of them lay something far more dangerous than a throne. A future chosen freely. They reached the edge of the forest by late afternoon, where the trees loosened their hold and the land opened into rolling ground brushed gold by dying summer. Wind carried distant scents, wild herds, unfamiliar packs, freedom unclaimed by banners. She slowed there, not from fear, but awareness. "This is far enough for today," she said. Chiron nodded, already reading the land the way wolves twice his age struggled to learn. He knelt, fingers brushing the grass, eyes narrowing slightly. "It listens differently here," he observed. "Yes," she agreed. "Because no one has taught it to obey." They built a small fire tucked between stones, practical and quiet. As dusk settled, the sky burned amber and violet, and the world felt, briefly, simple. But simplicity never lasted. She felt the approach before sound announced it. Not pursuit. Observation. Her wolf rose within her, alert but unthreatened. She stood slowly and turned toward the rise behind them. Two figures crested the hill. Messengers. They carried no weapons, no pack markings, their dominance folded tightly inward. They stopped well beyond striking distance and waited. Chiron looked at her. "From him?" "Yes," she replied. She walked forward alone until the land marked the boundary beneath her feet. "You were told not to follow," she said calmly. "We were told not to hunt," one messenger corrected. "Not to speak." The distinction mattered. She folded her arms. "Speak, then." The elder among them inclined his head. "The Alpha King requests a meeting." She laughed softly. He already had won. "This would be different," the elder said carefully. "No pack. No council. No witnesses." Her gaze sharpened. "And no demands." The second messenger swallowed. "None." Chiron stepped up beside her then, posture relaxed but unmistakably present. The messengers stiffened instinctively, eyes flicking to him and away again. "He doesn't get to summon us anymore," Chiron said evenly. The elder nodded. "We know." Silence stretched. "What does he want?" she asked at last. "To step down," the elder said. The words fell heavy and unreal. She stared at him. He already lost authority. "Not the crown," the elder replied. "Only obedience." Chiron's brow furrowed. "Why now?" "Because tonight," the elder said quietly, "the pack will try to claim you again, without his sanction." Her chest tightened. They'll fail. Yes, the elder agreed. But not without damage. And he thinks stepping aside will stop them, she asked. He thinks removing himself from the equation might force the pack to confront what they've become, the elder said. And what they did to you. Chiron studied the messenger. And what does he want from us? The elder hesitated. Witness. She exhaled slowly. Of course he does. She looked back toward the open land, weighing paths, futures, risks she had spent years avoiding. I won't return to be used as absolution, she said firmly. We know, the elder replied. He asked us to say that forgiveness is not his expectation. Chiron's voice was quiet. Then why go? She met her son's gaze. Because, she said slowly, sometimes walking away isn't enough. Sometimes you have to leave after the truth has no place left to hide. Chiron nodded once. Then I'm coming. Yes, she agreed. You are. They traveled back under moonrise, not rushed, not hidden. The land did not resist them, nor did it guide them. Choice again. When the royal grounds came into view, they felt different, quieter, stripped of ceremony. No torches burned. No banners flew. The pack had gathered anyway. Not in celebration. In confusion. At the center of the grounds, the Alpha King stood alone, crown resting on the stone dais beside him. When he saw them, something in his posture eased, not relief, but resolve. You came, he said quietly. You asked, she replied. Chiron stepped forward, gaze steady. You said no witnesses. The Alpha King nodded. I meant no shield. He turned to the assembled pack and raised his voice, not with dominance, but clarity. I am stepping down, he declared. Effective immediately. A gasp rippled outward. This crown, he continued, lifting it briefly before setting it down again, was built on certainty. And certainty made me cruel. The Luna surged forward. You can't. He silenced her with a look, not sharp, just final. I rejected my true mate, he said openly. I declared her barren because she did not serve my ambition. Murmurs erupted, shock, horror, disbelief. And in doing so, he went on, I denied my own blood. The pack reeled. Chiron stood tall, unflinching. I will not rule a pack that believes power excuses harm, the Alpha King said. And I will not lead wolves who confuse lineage with ownership. He turned then, to her. I don't ask forgiveness, he said evenly. I ask permission to step aside cleanly. She held his gaze for a long moment. You don't need my permission, she said. But you do need to stop pretending this is about you. A flicker of something like relief crossed his face. Yes, he agreed. I do. The crown lay untouched between them. And for the first time in generations, the pack stood without a king, forced to face the consequences of what they had demanded, what they had mocked, and what they had tried to claim. Chiron exhaled softly. What happens now? She looked at the crowd, not with anger, not with triumph. With finality. Now, she said, you learn how to exist without using us as proof of your righteousness. The land did not hum. It watched. The pack did not know how to stand without a crown. That truth revealed itself immediately, wolves shifting uneasily, elders speaking at once, warriors bristling without direction. The space where authority had always anchored now felt hollow, and the hollow frightened them more than any enemy ever had. She felt it like a pressure trying to return, habit seeking shape. It did not find one. The Alpha King stepped back from the dais, hands empty, posture no longer braced by title. He did not look at the crown again. This gathering is dismissed, he said quietly. No one moved. Chiron broke the stillness first. They don't know how to leave. The Alpha King nodded. Neither did I, once. She stepped forward, voice calm and unraised. You don't need permission to breathe. The words rippled through the crowd, unsettling in their simplicity. An elder cleared his throat. Without an alpha, the pack will fracture. Maybe, she replied. Or maybe you'll learn what you've been avoiding. The Luna stepped forward, composure brittle. You've taken everything, she snapped. Our celebration. Our future. She met the woman's gaze steadily. No. I returned what was built on cruelty to the people who built it. The Luna's hand tightened over her belly. You would condemn my pups. Chiron spoke gently. No one is condemning them. We're refusing to be used to crown them. The distinction silenced the accusation. A murmur rose, uncertain, conflicted. Some wolves looked relieved. Others furious. Leave, someone shouted suddenly. All of you. The cry echoed, brittle with fear. She nodded once. We were always going to. She turned to the Alpha King. You did what you needed to do. He bowed his head. It cost less than keeping it. They walked away together, not as family, not as pack. As truth passing through a place that had exhausted its lies. No one stopped them. Outside the grounds, the night felt different, lighter, unburdened by spectacle. The forest accepted them without resistance, shadows folding naturally around their path. Chiron exhaled slowly. They're scared. Yes, she said. Because now they have to choose. And you, he asked. She smiled faintly. I already did. They made camp near a low ridge overlooking the valley. The fire burned small, practical, unconcerned with ceremony. Above them, stars scattered freely across the sky. The Alpha King sat apart at first, distance deliberate. She did not invite him closer. He earned proximity by silence. After a time, he spoke. They will try to reclaim the crown. Maybe tonight. Maybe after blood is spilled. That's their lesson, she replied. Not ours. He nodded slowly. And Chiron? She looked at her son, who was tracing patterns in the dirt, thoughtful rather than burdened. He will grow where no one teaches him to mistake power for worth, she said. The Alpha King swallowed. I won't follow. I know, she replied. This is where we part. He stood then, steady despite the weight settling fully on his shoulders now. You could have taken everything from me, he said. You didn't. She met his gaze evenly. Taking is what you needed to unlearn. He inclined his head, not kneeling, not dominating. Acknowledging. When he turned away, the land did not resist him. It did not welcome him either. It simply allowed him to walk back toward the consequences he had chosen. She watched until his scent faded, then turned west with Chiron at her side. The wind carried grass and distant water, not command. Chiron looked up at her. Are we done? She considered the question. With them, she said. Yes. With the story, he pressed. She smiled, eyes soft. No. Just with the part that hurt. They walked on as dawn approached, leaving behind a pack forced to rebuild without using her pain as foundation. And somewhere in the valley, the crown remained where it had been set down, untouched, unwanted, finally exposed as what it had always been. A symbol that only held power as long as someone agreed to kneel. Dawn rose slowly over the western ridge, light spilling across grass still silvered with night. She woke before the sun crested, breath steady, senses calm. No alarms. No tension pulling at her ribs. Just the soft certainty that they had crossed beyond the reach of yesterday. Chiron stirred beside the embers, eyes opening clear and alert. He didn't follow, he said. No, she replied. He understood where his path ends. They broke camp without urgency and continued west, moving through land that did not recognize crowns or ceremonies. Here, packs traveled lightly, meeting when needed, parting without drama. Authority existed, but it shifted like weather, answering circumstance rather than demanding allegiance. Chiron noticed everything. "Why don't they stare?" he asked as they passed a small traveling group. "Because they don't know what to expect from you," she said. "And they're not afraid of that." He considered it. Fear makes people curious in the wrong way. "Yes," she agreed. "And dangerous." By midday, they reached a shallow crossing where a river spread wide and slow. Wolves had gathered there, traders, scouts, wanderers. Conversations paused as she and Chiron approached, eyes lifting briefly, then returning to their business. No challenge. No recognition. Relief settled deep in her chest. They rested on the far bank, sharing dried meat and water. The world felt wider here, less defined by past grievances. Chiron skipped stones across the river, laughter bright and unguarded. "You did this," he said suddenly, watching ripples fade. "I didn't," she replied gently. "I stopped letting them decide." He nodded, satisfied. Behind them, the pack unraveled into truth. Without an alpha to absorb blame or enforce silence, grievances surfaced quickly. Elders argued openly. Warriors questioned old orders. The Luna withdrew, protected but isolated, the certainty she had relied on gone. The former alpha did not interfere. He watched. He listened. When wolves came to him seeking direction, he answered with questions. "What do you think? What are you afraid of losing? What would you choose if no one was watching?" Some left in frustration. Some stayed. Change arrived unevenly, and honestly. That evening, as she and Chiron camped near a stand of low trees, a presence approached, not stealthy, not aggressive. A lone alpha. He stopped well outside their firelight, posture open, dominance folded neatly inward. "I don't want trouble," he said. "Then you won't find it here," she replied calmly. He nodded and stayed where he was. "Word is spreading." She did not deny it. "You humiliated a king," he continued. She shook her head. "He did that himself." The alpha studied Chiron briefly, then looked away respectfully. "Some will come looking for him." "Yes," she said. "Will you fight them?" "No," she replied. "I'll refuse them." The alpha frowned. "That won't stop everyone." "No," she agreed. "But it will show who doesn't deserve an answer." He considered that, then inclined his head. "If you need passage, the northern routes are safer." "Thank you," she said. He left without asking names. Chiron watched him go. "People are different here." "They have to be," she replied. "There's no throne to hide behind." Night deepened. As the fire burned low, Chiron sat close, voice quieter now. "Do you ever wish he had chosen differently?" She breathed in slowly before answering. "Yes," she said honestly. "But wishing doesn't rewrite consequences." "And forgiving him?" "That rewrites me," she said. He smiled faintly. "I like who you are now." Her chest tightened, warm and fierce. "So do I," she replied. Weeks passed. They traveled farther west, crossing lands where stories of the fallen Alpha King arrived ahead of them, distorted, softened, sharpened depending on who told them. Some called him foolish. Some brave. Some broken. She did not correct them. Chiron grew stronger, steadier, his presence settling into something balanced and sure. He learned restraint without being taught submission. He learned confidence without hunger. One morning, standing on a ridge overlooking open plains, he asked, "What if they ask me to return one day?" She considered the horizon, endless and unclaimed. "Then you decide whether it serves you." And if it doesn't? Then you walk away, she said simply. He nodded, understanding complete. Far behind them, the pack learned the cost of mockery. Alliances shifted. Respect had to be earned without spectacle. The name of the rejected mate became a quiet warning, spoken less as insult, more as lesson. And the story of the alpha heir who walked away spread faster than any coronation ever had. At sunset, she and Chiron stood together, wind carrying their scent into open land where no one tracked it. She placed a hand over his heart, feeling the steady rhythm beneath. Remember this, she said. You don't owe anyone proof of your worth. He met her gaze, eyes bright and calm. Neither do you. They turned west again, walking into a future that no longer needed to punish anyone to feel powerful. Autumn followed them west. Not abruptly, quietly, the way real change always arrived. Grass dulled from gold to amber. Nights sharpened. The land no longer offered abundance freely, but it did offer honesty. Each step asked a question. Each shelter required choice. They welcomed that. Chiron learned the rhythm quickly, when to move, when to wait, when to listen to the wind instead of his instincts. He asked fewer questions now, not because curiosity had faded, but because answers were beginning to form inside him without prompting. One evening, as they climbed a low ridge overlooking a broad basin, he stopped and inhaled deeply. This place doesn't want anything from us, he said. She smiled. That's how you know it's safe. They descended at dusk, finding shelter near a line of stones half buried by time. The fire they built was small and deliberate. No signal. No invitation. As darkness settled, distant howls echoed, communication rather than command. Packs speaking to packs, not summoning them. Chiron listened, thoughtful. They're negotiating. Yes, she said. Without pretending it's something else. He nodded. That's harder. And more stable, she added. Behind them, the consequences of the ceremony continued to unfold. Without a crown to unify spectacle, the pack fractured into truths it had long ignored. Old rivalries surfaced, then cooled when no alpha stepped in to validate them. Elders learned quickly that authority carried no weight without trust. Some left to join other packs. Some stayed to rebuild something quieter. The former alpha remained. He did not reclaim power. He did not offer himself a solution. He worked. He listened. He stood watch when asked and stepped aside when not. When Wolf spoke his name, it carried less fear, and more accountability. Weeks later, word reached her through travelers by a river crossing. The pack you left is changing, a scout said carefully. Not for the better. Not for the worse. Just, slower. She nodded. That's what happens when fear stops doing the work. The scout glanced at Chiron, then away again. Some want him back. Chiron didn't react. She answered evenly. They don't get him. The scout inclined his head. Understood. They parted without further exchange. That night, as frost crept along the stones, Chiron sat close to the fire, expression distant. You know, he said quietly, they'll never stop wondering what I could have been there. Yes, she replied. And that's not your burden. He poked the embers thoughtfully. Sometimes I wonder what kind of king I would have been. Her breath stilled, not with fear, but awareness. And, she asked. He looked up, eyes steady. One who doesn't want a throne. She felt something settle in her chest, relief, pride, grief for a future that would never be demanded of him. That's the only kind worth being, she said. They reached the western flats as the season tipped fully toward cold. Here, the land stretched wide and quiet, herds moving slowly, packs drifting like weather systems rather than armies. No one challenged them. Some greeted them. Some ignored them. Both were acceptable. Chiron trained in the open, running, sensing, learning to regulate his presence without shrinking it. His aura no longer surprised wolves. It steadied them. He was becoming what he was meant to be, not an heir, not a symbol. A person. One morning, standing beneath a sky washed pale by frost, he asked, "Do you think he's watching us?" She considered the question honestly. "No," she said. "And that's the point." He smiled, satisfied. Far away, the pack held its first council without an alpha. Voices clashed. Compromises stalled. Some storms passed without resolution. But something held. No one mentioned her name aloud. No one needed to. As winter approached, she and Chiron found a place to stay, a valley protected from harsh winds, shared by wanderers who understood the value of boundaries without fences. They helped where they could. They left when they wished. No one asked for lineage. No one demanded proof. One evening, as snow began to fall in soft, deliberate patterns, Chiron stood beside her and watched the flakes settle. "I think I'm done being part of their story," he said. She wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "You were never meant to finish it for them." He leaned into her, comfortable and certain. Behind them, the past loosened its grip, not erased, not forgiven into silence. Transformed. And ahead of them waited the last truth of all. That some victories are not claimed in ceremonies or crowns, but in the quiet decision to keep walking. Winter arrived without asking permission. Snow fell thick across the western flats, reshaping the land into something quieter and more honest. Tracks faded quickly here. Scent carried shorter distances. No one followed anything for long. She welcomed that. The valley they had chosen held warmth in unexpected places, stone that remembered sun, windbreaks shaped by years of wandering packs who knew how to coexist without conquering. No banners marked territory. No rituals announced belonging. People stayed because they wanted to. Chiron thrived in that simplicity. He rose early, helped with hunts, learned the rhythms of shared survival. He spoke little about where he came from, and no one pressed. His presence was felt, not as pressure, but as steadiness. Wolves trusted him instinctively, the way one trusted solid ground without thinking to test it. One evening, as the fire crackled low, an elder from the valley sat across from them. "You carry alpha blood," the elder said calmly, not accusatory. Chiron met his gaze. "Yes. And yet you don't lead." "No," Chiron replied. "I listen." The elder nodded slowly. "That may be why people follow you anyway." Chiron frowned. "They don't." "They do," the elder corrected gently. "Just not the way you were taught to fear." She watched her son closely then, not with worry, but recognition. This was what she had protected. Not his power. His choice. Far to the east, the pack continued to unravel and reweave itself. Without a crown, alliances shifted. Old hierarchies softened or broke entirely. Some wolves left to seek simpler structures. Others stayed, discovering that responsibility felt heavier when it could no longer be blamed upward. The former alpha remained among them, not above, not beneath. When asked about the child, he answered honestly. "He owes us nothing." And slowly, painfully, the pack learned that truth did not destroy them. It merely refused to lie. On the longest night of winter, she stood alone beneath the stars while Chiron slept nearby. Snow whispered across the ground, soft and deliberate. She thought of the invitation, sealed in gold, meant to humiliate. She thought of the ceremony meant to crown someone else's triumph. She thought of the moment her son bowed, not to kneel, not to submit, but to acknowledge a truth that had never belonged to any alpha. Her chest no longer ached when she remembered it. That was how she knew she was free. Chiron joined her quietly, breath fogging in the cold. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't gone? She smiled faintly. Yes. And I would have spent the rest of my life letting them define me without my consent. He nodded once. I'm glad you went. So am I. Spring would come eventually. It always did. But she understood now that seasons didn't mark endings. Choices did. They would move again when the thaw arrived, maybe farther west, maybe south. There was no map demanding loyalty. No future scripted by bloodline or crown. Only movement. Only agency. As dawn began to bleed pale light across the snow, she placed her hand over Chiron's heart, feeling the steady rhythm beneath her palm. Strong. Calm. Unclaimed. Behind them lay a kingdom that had tried to mock her, break her, and use her pain as proof of its power. Ahead of them stretched a world that asked nothing, offering space instead. And as the sun rose over land that no longer recognized kings by force alone, one truth stood unchallenged at last. The Alpha King thought he invited her to be humiliated, but by bringing the heir he could never control, she taught an entire realm that power bows deepest to those who walk away with it still in their hands.